Welcome to the Wedding Songs Podcast, featuring newly released songs you need to know and the tried and true classics. Get song ideas from the time guests arrive until the last dance of the reception. And now your host, Matt Campbell, founder of MyWeddingSongs.com.
Welcome, everybody, to the Wedding Songs Podcast. I am Matt Campbell, and today we're going to be talking about hiring and firing. Really hiring and training a professional DJ team. To help me along with this, I have Paul Anthony. He's CEO of EMP DJ and the former owner of mobiledj.com.au, which, of course, he DJ'd in Australia, and as DJs do today, they DJ all around the world. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Thanks, Matthew, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I really appreciate you helping me out with this topic today, and I know you have lots of experience with it. But before we get to it, can you just share a unique wedding moment that you had as a DJ?
Yeah, so for me, I've been DJing obviously many years, so it's quite a blur of memories, but one in particular that gets my memories being on stage for an Arabic wedding. It was a big wedding with 300-400 people. It was underground in the city, but it was a very big grand ballroom, so a very high ceiling, and it had an Egyptian Aladdin kind of theme with the pillars on the sides, and it was very cool sort of a thing. And I was on stage with like a 10-piece Arabic band. So there's lots of drums and Arabic singing and that sort of thing. So it's really awesome when you're up on stage and you've got a band next to you creating that live experience. So one of the cool moments was when, the Arabic band's really playing away and the drummer came over and handed me the drum stick so I could just start beating the drum to the music, which is really cool, being on stage and banging the drums and doing DJing and, all that sort of stuff. For a cultured wedding, it was quite an experience.
So let me just ask you, did you know the music or did the couples help you with that music? How did that process go?
Yeah, with Arabic music, my background is Greek. My father's Greek, my mother's Maltese. So I'm kind of comfortable with music from other countries and that sort of thing. So I had DJ'd a few Arabic events and weddings over the years. Melbourne is a very multicultural place. So I've DJ'd Indian, Chinese, Italian, everything, right? So with the Arabic music, I think I would probably, like any cultured music, I would ask the client to provide me maybe 10 or 20 songs or something like that. But then from that event, they would give me some really good songs and I'll keep that in my library for the next time I do an Arabic wedding. And I'd slowly build a bit of a collection of go-to songs. So that's how I did that. And, most of the time when you do cultured music at a wedding, you don't have to play 5 hours. So it's a challenge that you can potentially take on depending how much of that music they want. But if say it's a Greek wedding, they might just want a 30-minute set of Greek dancing. It doesn't have to be 5 hours, and maybe a few kind of background songs during the meals to theme it a bit if that's what they want. So yeah, basically speak to the client and get them to provide a bit of a playlist in that case.
I think that's a really important takeaway for new DJs is don't be afraid to do it. Just start it, work with your couples, and then build your library, research it, talk to maybe other experienced DJs that have done it before. But that's the only way you're going to learn is to actually do it. So I think that's a really important tip.
Yeah, and you want to, let the customer know if you've never done that music before, so they're aware. You're not going to lie to them and just go, yeah, I can do it. You might say, I've never done this music before, but if you provide some of that thing and you might be upfront and say, look, I think we might only be doing a 30-minute set. So if you kind of be upfront about it and then they're okay with the fact that you haven't DJed that music before, then that's okay. But I guess you don't want to pretend that you've done that music if you haven't done that music before.
Very, very important. Yeah, I had a conversation with an Indian DJ and he's like, yeah, you don't realize, or somebody that doesn't play Indian weddings all the time, it's not all Indian music. You're playing hip hop, you're playing other things. And like you said, you might have a 2-hour, 3-hour dance set. It's not all the same. And that would go for any wedding, I would say.
Yeah. So it's not the greatest challenge. In very rare cases, they want that music all night. And I think that's one of those jobs you might have to pass up.
Before we go any further, can you please introduce yourself to our listeners?
Yeah, sure. Look, my name's Paul Anthony. I started DJing when I was 16, 1997. My brother was a DJ. He was working for another big DJ company and he left some equipment in the garage and he went to Europe for 6 months. And while he was there, my aunties and uncles would have, 40th and 50th birthdays and I would basically put my hand up to go and DJ for them for free. And my CD collection was, probably just 20 or 30 CDs and a few scratch CDs, and maybe go out and buy a few new singles or something like that. So it was a limited music selection, but you just work with, what you got. You kind of, when you're starting out, you just do what you can. So that was the early days. I kind of started like that. Then I put advertising in the local newspaper, and I started to get, 1 or 2 bookings a month. And, after a year, I kind of saved up and then got to the next set of equipment. Basically, between the year 2000 to 2010, I expanded from that point to 16 sets of DJ equipment. And to grow that way, I guess, there was a lot involved, and it wasn't a straight line. Like, sometimes you think, how am I going to get there? How do you get to 16? Because when I started out, I didn't have any money, and my parents never loaned me money. I asked them for a loan, but they never gave me a loan. And so you just have to find a way. And I eventually kind of found a way and got some kind of finance and managed to grow to that point. And that was between basically 2010 to 2012 was the peak of my DJ business. I had 16 sets. We're doing 100 gigs, 80 to 100 gigs a month. And I had a full-time manager and 2 full-time sales people. So the full-time manager, his job was to every Monday start confirming all the bookings for the weekend. Now, when you got 20 events on the weekend or 25 events, it takes 3 days to get through to everyone, because, some people, they're not available right away, they're at work, and you need to confirm the address, the start time, you want to get, collect the payment, you want to finalize discussions about the music, and just basically confirm all these events. So it was a lot of work. And I think at that point, once I reached that peak, I think I realized that it was just too much work. I was basically waking up 8:30 in the morning every day, working on the business till 9 p.m. at night, DJing Friday and Saturday night, sometimes DJing on a Sunday. And I was getting a bit exhausted. So basically from there, I had a turning point in my career. I had a lot of work coming from Google at the time that helped my growth. But what happened is around 2013, my Google rankings just dropped off of Google. And literally, I had all this equipment, I had this business built up, but then all of a sudden my inquiries, dropped dramatically. And so that caused me to have to do some retrospect and look and kind of rethink everything. And basically from that point, I started to downsize the DJ business and started building the EMP DJ application. So that's kind of my story in a nutshell, without going on and on.
Yeah, I feel your pain with Google. We'll save that for another episode.
Yeah.
But when you had your team, were they full-time employees? Yep. Were they contractors?
Yeah, so the way my business was structured is that I used to buy the equipment and train the DJs myself. The reason I did that was because you can make a higher profit margin because you own the equipment, right? The other reason I did that was because you can choose anyone to be a DJ. Whereas if you're working with DJs who have their own equipment, you need DJs who have their own equipment. And that attracts certain personality type that may not be what I was looking for. I prefer, generally in the past, I was always looking for DJs who had no experience because I wanted a clean slate to work on. So I would kind of look more for just someone with a good personality was really my what I'm looking for. So when I'm interviewing someone, I prefer someone a little bit on the slightly nerdier side, meaning I'm looking for someone who I think is going to be trustworthy and loyal and able to follow instructions. Basically, that's what I'm looking for. And then I can train that person. I found when I was using DJs who were already in the industry, or they would have their own stigmas and things like that. And it would be kind of harder to work with them. So in the past, I preferred to work with, people with zero experience.
It's funny you say that. I worked with a boss, and he always used to say, if you're going through a drive-through fast food and you find somebody that has a great personality, give them a card, because that's the kind of person we want to hire. You're kind of saying that. Of course, trustworthy is there too.
And it's funny you say that, because some of my first DJs, I picked them out at parties. So I'd see someone who was like a outgoing kind of person, and I'd go, "Hey man, do you want to be a DJ?" And they'd be like, "Yeah," and then I'd train them. So that's how I used to pick out my first DJs at parties. Because I was younger, I was 19, 20, and I'd be spotting out people who were kind of my age at the time, and it was based on personality.
So Paul, you kind of mentioned some of those qualities, trustworthy. My rule of thumb is I want to hire somebody that I would want to go and have a drink with. it would be somebody that's sociable like that. Are there any other skills that you prioritize when hiring DJs to add to your team?
Let me think. I don't think so because nothing else really mattered. If they had the personality and they seemed like a good person, then that was really what I was looking for. So I think that was it.
Cool. So let's say you're getting ready to train them, you have a new person. How do you ensure that they deliver the best experience for the clients?
Yeah. So as I had for many years, I had 8 sets of equipment. And so I had to always be training new DJs. I was pretty much the only one to train the DJs. And so I had to keep training DJs to facilitate those equipment. And, every 6 months, another DJ leaves and then I got to train another one. So my thing was that I would take the DJs out to 5 events. It doesn't sound like much, but it's enough to get someone going, not for a wedding, but for like birthdays and things like that. I think it's enough. First time I take them out with me, they would just watch me most of the time. They'd help me carry the equipment. I'd show them how to set up the equipment. And 90% of the time is them just standing next to me watching, and I might get them to play with the mixer a couple of times. That's the first event. And then the next one, I get them a bit more hands-on, where I might be choosing the songs, but getting them to do the mixing. And at this point, I was actually just thinking the other day of a little trick that I used to do to put my trainees on the spot. And one of the things I'd be doing is when the dance floor is full and everyone's dancing, I'd get a song lined up and I'd say, I got to go to the toilet. If I don't come back in time and the song's not ready, make sure you press play and move the fader over. And they go, okay, but I'll probably come back. And then I'd go to the toilet and then I'd just stand at the back of the room and let the song end. And like it might go to silence for a second, but I put them on the spot so they freak out and go, and they have to actually they get under that pressure, because I want to put them under pressure while I'm still in the room, not when I don't want them to be in that circumstance at a party in the future when I'm not there. So I kind of do it intentionally to put them on the spot, but it's kind of good because they will freak out and there might be a rare circumstance when I have to run up and push play. But no, it was no. I don't think that was the case. Most of the time it was just like literally they just had to press play and move it over. But putting them on the spot, I think that was a cool little thing. Taking them out to 5 events, by the time they're on the 5th event, they're doing the job, and I'm just kind of helping them carry the gear and watch them do the job. So that's how I would do it. And then when they send them out for the first couple of jobs, I might, I put them on easy jobs like an engagement or a birthday, and then just follow up with the customer after the weekend, see what they thought. And, people, if you train them well, they don't know any better. They don't know. I don't tell them, and this is actually something important. I would never tell a client that this is a trainee or someone who's new, because people have prejudice and they will just start to think, oh, he's not going to do a job, or they'll start picking every little mistake that they do. So it's best to kind of have the customer have the impression that, okay, this guy's been DJing for a little while, like it's just a trust thing. It makes it easier on the DJ. And I do tell the DJs, there are some times when you've had a DJ, they're in a high pressure situation and they might confess to the client, oh, this is my first job. And then that's like the customer complains after that, and oh, why'd you send me down a newbie or whatever it is. But the fact of the matter is that at some point, everyone has to do their first job, right? So it's a step that has to be gone through. So I think it's just best to, not tell the customer in that circumstance, and just follow up with the customer and make sure that the DJ has done a good job.
Well, I think exactly what you're saying is it opens the door for the client to get a discount. You're sending me a newbie. I want a discount. He didn't do this right or that right. Oh,
yeah. They'll pick apart every little thing now,
Yeah,
so
for sure. It's funny. One of the things when you were talking about leaving them to play the next song, one of the things I used to do with friends, I would say, okay, the dance floor is packed. What's the next song you're going to play? And I would test them like that. Because I wanted to know where direction
and then
they
pick
would.
a song.
Right.
And then see how it works. It is gonna, and you like, I'm not gonna, and they go, you don't tell them if it's gonna work or not, if you think it's gonna work.
Yep.
In fact, I used to say to my own DJs that sometimes they might suggest a song and I think, I wouldn't play that song. But then I also think to myself that I'm not always right. Even with all my experience, they might suggest a song and they might put it on and it might work. So I could be wrong. So it doesn't matter how many years experience I got. Everyone has different tastes and that sort of thing. So I do, like what you're saying, you kind of let them put it on. And even if maybe sometimes you think, I don't think it's going to work. And they might put it on and go, oh, well, what do you know? That was a good choice, So you challenge them on song choices as well.
Or if it clears the dance floor, how are they going to get them back? Or I can
Yep.
get them back, then they're learning that trick, those tricks as well. So, but you know, you just hopefully you're hiring the right people that'll figure that out. What steps are you ensuring that your DJs are proficient in the equipment and troubleshooting? I know they're doing 5 events for you. Are you continuing that education on learning the equipment?
Nothing in particular. I used to provide them two active speakers and a dual Denon CD players with a mixer and all that sort of stuff. It wasn't too complicated, really. These days, DJs' equipment setups are amazing. It wasn't like that 20 years ago. It was still professional and neatly presented, but it was just two speakers, two lights, and a mixer. And there was no lighting rack. I mean, you could have a lighting rack, but most DJs were rather minimal. It's only in the last 5 or 10 years, maybe because of the internet, that I've seen DJ setups really change. I mean, the equipment's gotten much better, and now you've got the scrims and all the LED lights, and that sort of stuff has really changed, DJ setups. But for me back in the day, I had all the equipment was the same. I had the same speakers, same thing. And so it was pretty easy for the DJs to pick up. In terms of troubleshooting, I can't say there was no real actual, I can't think of any problem really regarding
Right.
that.
Where I was just thinking nowadays, okay, the computer stops working. What do I do? Just basic stuff. But like you said, if all of the equipment's the same, they're going to talk with one another as well. It's not just you. They can work through those problems that they have together too. Wedding DJs and wedding pros, are you ready to elevate your expertise and keep the dance floor packed? Introducing the Wedding Music Letter, your weekly email written by me, Matthew Campbell, packed with exclusive insights and inspiration. Every Wednesday, I deliver curated playlists, deep dives into wedding and music industries, and practical tips on topics like science of creating a playlist, managing decibel levels, and crafting unforgettable parent dances. Stay informed, stay inspired. Subscribe to the Wedding Music Letter and bring the best music moments to life at every wedding. Sign up today at weddingmusicletter.com. The Wedding Music Letter, expert insights every Wednesday straight to your inbox at weddingmusicletter.com. Now back to the show.
I do have one funny story. I had a DJ a long time ago that was DJing an event, and he couldn't work out why the mixer wasn't turning on. And I was talking to him on the phone for like 20 minutes. What's going on? And eventually I had to drive down to the gig, and I walked straight in, and straight away I could see that the power wasn't on, and just push the power button. I go, the power's not on. Because it was like a power within the carpeted box and everything. The switch was not the main switch. So yeah, sometimes you have these little hiccups.
For sure. So I was just thinking, you have the 8 systems. Are you sending out 2 DJs together? Or are you just sending them out individually? How did that work?
No, individually.
Okay.
If a DJ had been DJing with me for a while, then I would start to send trainees with my more experienced DJs. So I did do that a little bit. Otherwise, it's a lot of pressure on me to constantly be refilling for 8 sets of equipment, which I did most of it. But yeah, I'd send them out with my more experienced DJs.
How did you work the feedback then to evaluate their performance as a DJ?
Yeah, so like I said, I think for me, I would really just follow up with the clients early on after their first few gigs, and then after that, I wouldn't have to anymore. I mean, if people aren't happy, they let you know. So it was more so just making a phone call for the first few jobs. Call customer, hey, did he do this? Did he arrive on time? Did he introduce himself to you at the start of the night? And just ask them a few questions to make sure that they've done the things that you've told them they should be doing. So I think that was enough for me, was just following up with the clients.
I just want to throw it out there too that one suggestion I've heard another DJ, a multi-op, say recently is they actually have their DJs fill out a form of what they thought of the event. So that way, at least they have some tracking. So if a customer does call and say, hey, I had this problem, you have the DJ's perspective. And one of the things that DJ Rachel, she said once, is she's recording the whole thing. So that way, if they say, you didn't do the grand entrance, well, guess what? I have a recording of it. So I really know what happened. So it's just two things too, as they say, CYA, and just make sure that all your ducks in a row.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's good to get the DJ's perspective. And so that way, yeah, if the client says otherwise, you can compare the two.
That happened to me once. I sent a friend out, and they were saying that they didn't pay him for overtime or something with overtime and getting paid, and they wanted money back. And I believe my DJ. I didn't believe the client. I just said, "Sorry, this is what actually happened, and I'm not going to give you any money back."
It's a tricky one. Look, I mean, as much as I want to say that, we are the best DJ business, you're going to get complaints because,
Mhm.
especially when you're sending other people out, and if you've got a larger DJ business, you're going to get complaints. I got complaints about myself sometimes, and I would be
Mhm.
shocked because I'd think that everything went fine. So, you just never know. There's different personalities, and sometimes you have personality clashes. And yeah, you have to become, when dealing with negative feedback, you have to become a bit of a judge Judy. And call the customer, find out what they got to say, call the DJ, find out what they got to say. Kind of, there's a bit of back and forth going through, trying to find out who's telling the truth, because you don't know. You don't.
Right.
Even the DJ could be twisting the truth. So
Right.
yeah.
And their perspective. So yeah. And now they
Mm.
have online reviews, so you have to make sure everything that you're doing. It's crazy. Let's not talk about the bad stuff anymore. Let's talk about the
Mm.
fun stuff, the music. So
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
did you keep everybody's knowledge fresh and the new music current with everybody on your DJ
Yeah.
team?
So I started collecting CDs in 1999. I found a supplier that provided a monthly CD for DJs. You might even be familiar with those type of things yourself.
Yep.
So for many years, I used to buy a CD once a month. I used to have them delivered, one for each set. And that would keep me up with the top 40. They were really good. It was like $20. I would have about 20 songs on it, but they were all top 40 songs, which was
Mhm.
a really good deal because around that time, between years 2000, 2010, until CDs were no longer popular, we used to buy singles. Like an
Mhm.
artist would release an album, but then they'd release a single,
Yep.
but a single was $10, so you're paying $10 for one song. So to get the DJ CDs and pay $20 and get 20 singles in one CD was a good value. So that was what I used to do, keep up the top 40. And yeah, with the older music, I think I just built up a collection, and basically the DJs had all the same classic collection. Eventually, once we moved to laptops, I would make really good playlists. And so the playlists were actually really the key because they're kind of like compilation CDs, but they're not limited to 20 songs. So I spent a lot of time creating really good playlists. And I think that was probably part of the key to keeping the consistency and quality, actually, was making sure that this is in the later years with the laptops. Obviously, with CDs, I could create compilations, but it's a bit more clunky and harder to distribute. But once you've moved to laptops and it's all with playlists, it's much easier to make sure everyone's got the same playlists. And so, yeah, I think that was a key to making the job easy for them, is spoon feeding them the songs.
I think it's the same nowadays with the record pools. Yeah, I'll throw out like Promo Only was I consider one of the top tier record pools even today, where you can keep up with that new music. It's the top 40 because it's not like you're going to be playing really weird stuff all the time at weddings. It's primarily a lot of the popular music, no matter what the genre is, country, hip hop, you know,
Yep.
R&B, whatever. So you can have those songs ready and create those playlists beforehand, like you said, so that way they're ready. But then there's somebody older that comes up and says, "Play me some Hall and Oates," and the DJ is like, "Who is that?" you know.
Yeah.
So it's constantly educating the DJs as well. I heard recently that you're engaged. Congrats. So
Thank you.
how is your wedding planning process going along since you have so much wedding experience?
We haven't done much planning yet. We're going to get married on my fiance's birthday,
Okay.
which is Christmas Day.
Oh,
So that's all the way in December. So I haven't started. What we know, we're going to have a wedding in Thailand,
okay.
because she's Thai. So we're going to do a traditional wedding in the farm, on the mango farm, and that's kind of literally out on a farm. They set up massive speakers and they have like a party. And then we're going to do like a destination wedding, which will be in Phuket, and that's where all my family and friends will come. to Phuket. So we haven't started that yet, but I have dealt with wedding planners and I've DJed weddings in Thailand. So I've got an idea of what we want, but I haven't actually started piecing it together yet.
Well, that's cool for her because at least now I think that was the same way my wife was, that because I had so much experience, it really kind of took the pressure a little bit off of her because I kind of knew what to do. And I'm sure that your fiance feels the same way too, that she doesn't have to plan everything because you have your experience and are going to be involved with it.
Yeah, we know what's needed, whatever it is, cake decoration, blah, blah, all those kind of things. It's not like we don't know. Yeah, so I think that will make it easier, definitely.
So how about your music tastes? Are they similar then?
I've had quite a journey of my music tastes. I'm 43 now, so basically when I was in my teens, I only liked classical music. I really didn't like the top 40. And it was only when I started learning guitar when I was 15, and then I got into Pearl Jam, and then I got into Nirvana, and then I started getting into rock music. And then I joined a metal band, and we played heavy metal for 5 years around Melbourne in venues. But while that was going on, I started DJing. So I've gone from metal to DJing, and then with the DJing, I got in early years was hip hop and R&B was really popular around the year 2000. Still is, but it was really big back then. So I went through the hip hop R&B thing, and then Annual Ministry of Sound 2004, 2005. Remember that album? That
Yeah.
one really kicked off house music. Like house music wasn't popular before then. When the Ministry of Sound 2004 came out, that's when everyone started asking me from the songs from that album. And then it's like EDM and dance music kind of took off from there. So I went through the whole dance, techno, all that sort of stuff, house. And I produce music as well, but I just produce whatever I feel like. I don't have a specific genre. But in the last 5 years, I've been getting into glitch hop. There's a really good artist called Haywire. He's really awesome. There's an Australian producer, Mr. Bill. I've recently been getting into this drum and bass artist called Metric. So I mean, I could be listening to Spanish guitar music in the car. Like I listen to anything. I like Latin jazz. I can listen to anything.
I used to say I like any of the music as long as I can understand the words. But I think that now in America, it's become so culturally diverse where we have the Latin and the Indian and whatever cultural music where I enjoy the music even though I don't understand the lyrics. So for me,
Yep.
it's about, yeah, I think it's more about the way that it makes me feel. I can't say I understand the words anymore.
Well,
Interesting.
especially with heavy metal, but it's a bit harder. But yeah, it's about the groove, with metal.
So if you want to talk to somebody about it, I have a previous episode with DJ Dre Ovalle, and he's a
Okay.
big metal head. So
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Cool.
you guys can talk about the music. So I have to
Sounds
congratulate
good.
you too. You're going to be DJing
Yep.
at Mobile Entertainment Expo coming up
Yes.
in February. I'm not sure when this is going to drop, so probably somewhere around there.
3
What
weeks.
did you just submit one of your shows, or how did that process go?
Well, actually, I'm attending the expo as an exhibitor. As I was saying before, I've developed a CRM for mobile DJs. It's called EMP DJ. And so I've been working on this app for the last 10 years. And it's been a bit out there for people to use, but I haven't promoted it because I wasn't really ready. I didn't want DJs to come and try it and go, oh, it doesn't do this, it doesn't do that.
Mhm.
So I basically kept it a secret. I mean, I didn't really tell many people about it. It was just online. But so I basically am an exhibitor for the expo, and I put in one of my kind of mixes and said, yeah, I'd like to DJ for the event, and I was lucky enough to
That's
get
awesome.
on the short list.
I'm excited. This is going to be cool because there's only 10 this year. You have 30 minutes. I'm really excited for this show. And you mentioned the software. Just going back to training the DJs and hiring DJs, is there anything that we missed in that realm that we didn't share or talk about?
Look, there was one thing that I'll mention quickly is that I used to have a pay system where I would increase their pay over time with loyalty. It was like a loyalty thing. Basically, it was like between the first 20 gigs, they would get, let's say it was $20 an hour back then. And then after they've done 10 gigs, then it goes up to $22 an hour. And then after they've done another 10 gigs, it goes up to $24 an hour. And I would keep doing that until they were up to a certain limit that I would reach. So that's one thing I would do to encourage loyalty, because obviously when you train DJs over time, as they get better, eventually they want to go out and branch on their own. So you need to create an incentive for them to want to stay. So that's just one thing I would just add in there, is I had that sort of system in place.
I love that. Because I agree. Even when I started, I worked for somebody else, and I thought, man, the way he's doing this, I can do this better.
Yeah, it's a
on
natural
my
thing. I don't mind. DJs eventually go out on their own. That's what happens.
But you also have to protect your company. So yeah, I like that loyalty suggestion. So where
Yep.
can listeners connect with you and find you online today?
Obviously, I'm on Facebook, and the website is www.empdj.com. Basically, it's a CRM for mobile DJs. I've created something which is a very modern interface. It looks very different to all the other apps, because I kind of thought of things in my own way. I never really went and created trials with the other apps and looked at them. I just wanted to focus on my own thing, because that's how I did with my DJ business. I don't fuss about the competition. I just focus on what I'm doing. And that's kind of what I did here. So it's like an out of the box system. Basically, you just set the app up, and it has all the automations built in for you. So it has the quote form that goes on the website, sends out an automated quote. It does automated follow-ups with the prospect. If you don't speak to them, it does follow-up emails. And if you do speak to them, then it stops those emails, and has a contract system, has some music planner tools. And one of the main strengths is the sales follow-up system. I've got a good way of prioritizing the leads. When the new inquiries come in, I put them in a category called make initial contact. And what that means is I want to separate the inquiries from the ones that I haven't spoken to yet to the ones that I have spoken to, because the ones that I haven't spoken to yet, it's easy to overlook when you don't get through to someone, and then another day passes, and then another day passes, and after 5 days, you've lost the sale. Right. So you need to have an extra sort of importance for those fresh leads that come in to get onto them. Once you get onto them, it's slightly less urgent, because you might speak to them and then they say, yeah, I'm going to speak to my fiance. We will discuss it next week. And then you can follow up later. But the most important part is catching them early on. So they go into a separate little kind of category there. Once you speak to them, then you basically, like I said, if they're not ready to book straight away, then you have to set a follow-up date, which is something they have to do with inquiries, is follow up until people are ready to book. So personally, what I'll do is, if they're not ready to book, I'll say, when do you hope to make a final decision? And they might say, yeah, we're going to decide by the end of next month, or we're going to decide in the next 3 months. You don't know, because with wedding customers, you don't know if they're the kind of people that want to book it by the end of this week, even though the wedding's 1 year away, or they're like, yeah, we're going to book it sometime in the next 3 months. So you need to find out the urgency of the prospect and follow up around the time that they plan to make that final decision. So EMP DJ is going to help you with that sort of process, setting up follow-up dates and getting reminders to follow up with your prospects.
I love that, because Alan Berg always says, until you get a no, it's always a maybe. And even if it's the 18th time that you're following up, if it's not a no, you still have a chance to book.
Yeah, we used to do a few wedding expos, and we might get like 150 leads from a wedding expo, because they'll give you the book after as well. Plus on the day, I might get 80 names and emails and phone numbers, and not everyone's ready to book. No way. You have to follow up for months. You have to follow up for months. And it's not like some people are ready to book right away and other people aren't. And so you have to follow up. If you don't have an app to help you remember the conversations you had and set those follow-up dates and follow up with people, you're not going to reach a maximum potential with the sales.
Totally agree. Well, thanks, Paul, for being on the show today. I really appreciate it, and talking about hiring and training, and also about your software, EMP DJ. If you're a DJ, make sure that you go and check him out. Thanks for being on the show today. Stay tuned for another episode of another Wedding Pro learning tips on wedding music and the wedding industry. Thanks for listening, and have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Wedding Songs Podcast. Never miss a future episode. Subscribe today to our podcast. Follow us on Facebook at My Wedding Songs, and send us a message about playlists you would like covered.